Seniority, a presentation of the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center. Here's your host, Catherine Winsor.
Hello, I'm Catherine Winsor, and I'll be your host for Seniority, a new show that puts seniors first in St. John's, a show produced by seniors for seniors, and it's being done by the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center. Our goal is to better inform and inspire seniors living in Canada's most eastern city, to share information that maybe you haven't heard, and to help find people, resources, and services that will be of benefit to you and your friends. And also, we hope to have some fun. On this episode of Seniority, we'll hear more from George Parsons of the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center and Anne Marsh from the Seniors Inclusion Program. Plus, more of our conversations with Councillor Jill Bruce of the City of St. John's, Leon Mills of the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, with Larry Short about making a will, with author Helen Escott, and get more advice from Elizabeth Siegel of Seniors NL. The Jimmy Pratt Center started off as providing a soup kitchen on Fridays, but it has grown since then.
Our three regular programs right now would be the Synovus Monday morning breakfast. That's Synovus Energy. That's our sponsor for that breakfast, and they took over from Husky when they bought out the assets of Husky here in St. John's. So we've had them now for 10 years. And we also have, of course, our seniors program, which we've already talked about, and, of course, the Friday Soup Kitchen. And we have a variety of sponsors that come in maybe 2-3 times a year. Some come in, say, as many as 12 times a year. Some of them would be, for example, the Delta Hotel, that they prepare their meal at the Delta and bring it over along with their volunteers, and it's usually a meal that's fit for a king.
You said that a lot of the programs are run by volunteers, and if people would like to volunteer, do you still have a great need for people who might be interested to help with the seniors program or with the breakfast and lunch program?
Volunteers, for example, are pretty well the backbone of the overall operation. Without the volunteers, of course, we need sponsors too, but with the seniors, for example, we have a volunteer group of 7 that come every Wednesday, and they prepare, a hot, nourishing meal, and they sort of coordinate what's next, and they decide on a schedule of how they would operate for the next 3 or 4 months, and they keep adding to that to keep the schedule going, and it works fairly well. But like I said, it's our success. Our success is certainly dependent on volunteers.
And if people were interested to help and volunteer, they would contact you at the number 709-726-8781. 8781. Right.
Or they can give my cell a call at 709-685-0066. But Anne March is the coordinator, and the appropriate one to contact would be her. And in turn, when they come down, usually what we ask them to do is come and seek out Anne, and she will give them a little orientation into the program, introduce new people, new volunteers or new patrons to the main group, and it's like a little social.
Well, we're actually going to be interviewing Anne later, so that's wonderful. We'll bring those things up. And I guess either you or her, maybe for groups that might like to come to perform or to speak for the seniors, that would be an option for them to contact her. And I guess there's lots of groups out there that might be looking for things to do for seniors.
What they try to do is they try to plan for 3 months. So if you're going to have entertainment once a month, they'll try to book, say, 3 different groups to come in, and usually it's basically locals that do this on a regular basis to various retirement homes and so on and so forth. And it's a very enjoyable part of the program.
I've actually been down there when they've had their own little talent show.
Yes.
And a lot of gifts in that room downstairs when they're all gathered.
Yeah.
What would you say the greatest challenges are with the Outreach Centre today that you're faced with? Is there anything that stands out?
Looking at our current situation and the construction in the area, parking is the major deterrent to growing our program. Mm-hmm. We have lots of seniors who'd love to be able to come, and those that can come on the Go bus, for example. But there's no place there now. There's no stop zone there, no blue zone that allow that bus to come and park and allow the seniors to get out on a safe side and come in through the Jimmy Pratt door. We have an approval from the city. However, it is on paper and is not in reality. There's a lot of things happening that people don't see, right? And there's a lot of things we'd like to have happening that we'd love to see. However, it's you have to march at your own pace. We'd like to advance into 3 or 4 different categories, right? Especially for seniors, because this is a group that's paid their dues, and
yes.
If we can give back, finest kind.
George, is there anything else you'd like to add to what you've said already?
No, not really. Other than the fact that there's a tremendous opportunity for growth in that program, but under the current circumstances with parking, it's a major deterrent. We have enough activities happening that are rotated. That it's something new every week. It's not the same old, and if anything could change to the better for this program and the other programs of Jimmy Pratt, it certainly would be the parking situation.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful organization, and the people who can avail of it are very lucky. And it's wonderful to have sat and chatted with you, George. And thank you for all you do for the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center.
Thank you for the opportunity.
The Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center has a seniors inclusion program every Wednesday, offering seniors a fitness program, a meal, and some social time. Ann Marsh, who we have with us now, is the coordinator for this program, and she joins us now. Thank you, Ann, for being here. So tell us about your job with the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center and the seniors program.
So my job is I'm the coordinator of the program. So every week, every Wednesday, from 11 to 11:30, 11 to 3, I should say. And then we have a hot meal between 12 and 12:30. And then from 12:30 to 3 o'clock, we usually have, probably once a month, we'll have a guest speaker, or once a month we'll have music. And other than that, everybody sits back and have a game of cards. They can play bridge, they can play crib, they can play 120, whatever they want to do right up to 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I've heard a bit of dancing goes on too down there.
Absolutely. They even do pole dancing. They just stand up by the poles down there and just touch them, even with their walkers. They just touch the pole and walk around the pole. So everybody has a good time. But my job as the coordinator is to make sure that we have a guest speaker. I try to have a guest speaker at least once a month. I try to have music so that they can, with their mobility and that, get up and dance. And also I pick up all the food because we have a hot meal between 12 and 12:30.
So all of these wonderful things that you do during their time, what are the goals that you hope for when planning these things?
Well, my goal is to, I think everyone, and our program is for 55 plus, And my goal is that I think every senior, instead of staying home or if one of their loved ones passed away, I mean, they have a place to go. They got the camaraderie that they sit there and they talk, and they're not lonely anymore. I find that they laugh, they're communicating. There's people that were shy that came down, and once they came down to the program, they just didn't leave.
And do you have men and women to avail of the program?
I do. I started off with 2 men. Now I'm down. Now I have about 8 men down there, and they just love. They come every single week, and hoping to, the more the merrier.
Your program does an annual trip, I think. So tell us about some of the trips from previous years.
We try in July month. Our program ends around the end of May. So what we do. Around July, we'll call all the seniors up and we do a road trip. We hire a bus. We make sure that there's a bathroom on board, just in case anyone needs it. And we hire a bus. We'll either go to St. Mary's, we'll go to Rodriguez Wines, we'll go to Brigus, Cupid's. It could be anywhere. Could be up to Bury Heights. And what we do, we have a meal. Like if we go to out around Brigus, we'll get the community center out there. They'll do up a meal for us, and then so we'll do a little outing or a little tour of the area, Brigus or Cupid's, and then we'll have our meal, and then we'll come back to St. John's. But it's an all-day event.
But that's an all-day. Is there a cost for seniors to take part in the Seniors Inclusion Program?
To take part in the Seniors Inclusion Program, we charge $5, but that $5 actually goes back into the program and goes towards your outing at the end of the year. For the outing itself, there's no charge.
How can seniors join the Senior Inclusion Program, if any are listening now and are interested?
You can contact me at 709-743-0649 is my cell number. And my home line is 709-738-2140.
So that's how you would reach Anne Marsh if you were interested. Now, is there anything your program needs if any of our audience would like to help in any way?
Well, funding is how this program is actually running. And I apply for grants every year, but there's so many other organizations applying for grants. And sometimes there's times that we don't get the grant. So I'm just hoping that, if all I'm looking for is just a bit of money just to keep the program going. And, from the beginning of September is when we start, right up until the end of May. And then our outing is always in July. So I'd like to increase on our program. The more seniors, right now I have up to 39 seniors. If I can get the program up to about 50 seniors, I'm content. And I'm just passionate about this program, and I think this is what seniors need. And if they actually come to the program, you only need to come once. And I had Minister John Abbott come last Wednesday, and he was also impressed with the program. So I'm putting it out there. If any of the ministers or anyone from the city of St. John's would like to come down and see how our program works, we're here every Wednesday from 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So, Anne, at all these gatherings, I guess one of the things that happen is a sense of community, would you think?
Absolutely, it's a sense of community, getting together, and it's people knowing about each other too. It's how can I explain it? It's they come down, and like I said, they're shy. Some of them probably were living out of town at one time, but now because they're older now, they're living in town. But it is a place to come, and it is to get together, and it's the feeling. It makes my heart warm when I'm ready to serve the meal and see all of them talking and laughing and carrying on, and they play cards and they laugh over cards. And They can't wait until the program starts up again in September. They always say, why can't you keep it going during summer? But they can't wait. When it starts up in September, they can't wait to get that call to come to the program. I find that sometimes when seniors are lonely or lost, when they do actually come down to the program, it could be a family member or actually bring them down. And when they come here and they see people carrying on and laughing, they're not quite sure this is the place they want to be, but when they sit there and actually get involved with having a game of cards, because one thing about our seniors, they get everybody involved. So if you're new, they're there for you. And I find that person who probably felt lost or lonely, they'll come back every single week because they like the feeling of being at our seniors inclusion program.
So I guess, Anne, with everything you are saying, it proves to us that the goal of this program is putting seniors first.
Absolutely.
And it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
And now on Seniority, the conclusion of our conversation with Councillor Jill Bruce of the City of St. John's.
I was elected about 2.5 years ago. It's my first term on council. So I've had many different roles since I've been on council with advisory committees and that sort of thing. But right now, every 2 years we switch our portfolio. So this, for the remainder of my term, the last 2 years, I've taken on the Seniors Advisory Committee as one of my roles.
So Jill, all of these different programs that are provided, I guess they take place in different locations around the city?
They absolutely do. So for example, our Christmas dance is held at the Fawn Room at City Hall. But the majority of them are held at our community centres here across the city. So we've got the Paul Reynolds Community Centre, Shea Heights Community Centre, the Muse Centre, Kenmount Terrace, our new beautiful facility out there. So we try to have them in different locations at different times so that we can make them more accessible to as many people as possible, I should say. And of course, we've got the new Muse Centre coming on now in this year. So that'll be wonderful with a beautiful indoor walking track, which is something we hear from seniors. Like in the wintertime, I know my mom's an active walker, but getting out this time of the year is difficult. So having an indoor track, I think, will be beneficial.
And I think they often used to do that at the mall. That was where you'd go to walk.
Yes, there's a new commercial out about it now. Mall walkers,
really? Mall
yes.
walkers,
so
okay.
I think this will give people another outlet
place
for that.
to go. Okay. So Jill, can you give some specific ideas of the programs that are offered?
Sure. So we've got a lot of different categories. We've got art, and under art we've got acrylic painting, we've got oil painting. That's just a couple of ideas there. Leisure and learning, so that's our bridge. You have different levels of bridge you can learn. Handicrafting, which is fantastic as a textile person. So knitting, you have learn to knit, rug hooking, that sort of thing. Fitness, so under fitness, the prevention, learn how to fall, that kind of thing. Lifelong learners, introduction to philosophy. So I know someone who just did this course in the fall session and absolutely loved it. Much like a course you would do at a post-secondary education. Music, so you can learn how to play the fiddle, the guitar, the accordion. Beginner classes, intermediate, kind of wherever you kind of fall on that spectrum. And then dance. So we've got line dancing, beginner, ballroom dancing, Newfoundland traditional dancing, all kinds of things. And then we've got what I think is kind of fun. It's a social time. So it's basically just a time where seniors can go, sit down with each other, listen to music, you can play cards, you can basically do anything you want during that time. But it's not structured, because sometimes, if maybe you don't want to play cards or maybe you don't want to learn how to knit, you can just be there.
And chat.
Yeah. Wonderful. So that's just a kind of a treetop.
And then, of course, the guide that comes out.
Absolutely.
Has all of that listed and times and things.
It does.
It's a great little tool,
It is. Keep it on your coffee table. I even keep mine there. And also on the City of St. John's website, of course. It's all listed there as well if you want to hop on the internet instead.
So if somebody wants to start forming a seniority band, they should check out the music programs. You never know what could come out of this. You might be their lead singer, Jill.
I don't think they'll be lining up for me to be their singer anytime soon.
So, Councillor Bruce, you've shared a lot of information with us today, and there's a lot of wonderful things that we see are happening right now. Are you optimistic about the future as it relates to seniors in the city?
I am. I think sometimes when we watch the news and we, social media, it's very easy to get caught up in all the negative. And in this role, I sometimes hear a lot of negative and I get a lot of negative. However, when I look at what we're doing as a city and our designation now as an age-friendly city, I do have hope, and I do think we are on the right path. I think that the priority that we're putting on our seniors and how we deem them as being such an important part of our demographic, I do have hope that we're moving in the right direction. And I think fostering these relationships like we've talked about between our older demographic and our younger demographic is absolutely the key. Shared spaces like we've seen come out recently with living arrangements and just helping neighbors with snow clearing and things like that. I think we just need to foster these relationships, and we just need to try to turn some of the negative around into positive. But I am hopeful. I'll live in hope and die in despair, I think, but for sure.
Well, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to mention, Jill, that you feel is important information. If people want to contact you, you said you can just call City Hall. Is there a specific number that people would call?
Yeah, so my direct phone number is 576-7144, and my email address is jbruce, all one word, at stjohns.ca, and there's no apostrophes or anything in that. I will say that we were recognized recently, the City of St. John's, by the World Health Organization as being an age-friendly city. So we take that very seriously.
Wow, well done.
And we've done some engagement last year about what seniors think is important as an age-friendly city and what they want to see. And we're trying to build our programs, like I said, around what seniors want. We don't want to presume we know. We don't want to assume that we have figured out, because and it changes. It's very fluid, right? Sure. Depending on the season and things like that. Yes. So I'm really looking forward to my next 2 years with this portfolio.
I bet. And I think too with seniors too, getting up and moving is so important, and whereas I think at one time, I mean as a child myself, I thought once people got to a certain age, they went somewhere to graze. And I'm approaching that age, and I can't believe I thought that about others, So, it's wonderful that they're just things that people can avail of when they're in the prime of their life, let's say.
Absolutely. I think we all need a reason sometimes just to get up and go out, and that's what we're trying to do at the City of St. John's, provide these programs and give people a reason to want to get out and meet new people and do new things.
Well, Councillor Bruce, thank you for taking time to be here with us today on Seniority, and this information you've passed on, I'm sure, will be helpful to so many. Helpful to me. I don't fear the aging process quite so much now.
Thank you so much for the invite. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, any concerns, please feel free to reach out. I said when I got into this role, I wanted to be approachable. And I'll continue to do so for the next 2 years.
Well, it's easy to tell that you are approachable, and it's wonderful. I think it's all the work with those children that gets you prepared for something like this.
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you again. Leon, you've been with the association now for a number of years, so I guess you would see any patterns or changes. Is hearing loss a growing issue now, would you say, or is...
Yes, glad you asked that question, Catherine. It's very much a growing issue, and it's been it's probably one of the top 2 or 3 major health issues disabilities that in our province and country. Probably close to 25% of the overall population has some kind of hearing loss. Wow. And not all of those would necessarily need a hearing aid, but a good many of them do. But unfortunately, only about 5 to 10% of people actually get a hearing aid. And a lot of those aren't actually successful for different reasons. So, it's a big issue. And in fact, it might surprise you to know that hearing loss is the #1 disability claims for workers' compensation in this province, and has been for quite many decades, probably a long time. but you don't hear much about that. And in fact, the youngest demographic for people, fastest growing demographic for people hearing loss are people in their late 20s and 30s, mid 30s, because of people wearing these earbuds all the time. But of course, as you get older, you age. Most people, there's a chance that hearing loss will increase. I think about by the time you're 50, there's about a 40% chance you might have some kind of hearing loss of the overall population. So, and then if you get to be, say, your 60s and 70s, then that can go up to 55, 60% of seniors having some kind of hearing loss. So, yes, it's a very significant issue for seniors. And like I said, it caused a lot of seniors to, be withdrawn, isolated, and all those kinds of things because they have trouble communicating. And a lot of them don't really understand where the help might be available. But the other big issue is that the cost of hearing aids, right? It's not a matter of just going for the testing and all that kind of stuff, but you got to come up with the money for hearing aids. And a lot of people these things can cost anywhere from a pair of hearing aids, say a minimum of, about $3,000 up to $8,000. So, and a lot of people just don't have that kind of money lying around. So, and there's not a lot of help available. If you have an insurance plan, most of them might cover between $500 and $600, and there is a government program called Provincial Hearing Program called PHAP for short, PHAP, Provincial Hearing Aid Program. But it's an extensive application process, very lengthy, that turns a lot of people off. You got to submit your income taxes. It's all based on income and your expenses. So, and very hard to qualify for it. So you got to be almost, I'd say, penniless, to qualify for it. So but it's a very lengthy process as well. And so a lot of people just give up on it or don't bother trying. So unfortunately, the sad reality is that there's thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of people out there with hearing loss that should have hearing aids, but don't get them. So it's a very big issue.
Another big thing that you've done through the association is the annual lottery, and most people know about that. Every it's an annual event, isn't it? And I wondered about the role that plays in your organization and how that got started.
I'm really glad you asked that question too, Catherine, because the annual Dream Home Lottery accounts for probably 97% of our annual funding. We only get a very small grant from the provincial government of like $15,800 annually, which might surprise people to know. And so without that Dream Home Lottery, we just wouldn't exist. I mean, we're mostly, like I said, 97, 98% self-funded, which means we raise the money on our own with the public support, of course, and we're very appreciative of that. We've just finished up our 38th Dream Home, which is an amazing number. And we started those about, I don't know how many years ago now, 28, 29 years ago or something. And for a number of years, we did 2 a year, but then other people got into the marketplace. So we cut it back to 1. But so and a matter of fact, we're doing our Dream Home 38 draw tomorrow, so we're going to make somebody very happy. And also the 50-50 draw that, Newfoundlanders love their 50-50, and we had it reached almost $1 million on the 50-50. So somebody's going to go home with a very big check from that as well. So it's an important function to us. And like I said, without that, we just would not be able to exist. You can't do things with volunteers anymore like you did, years ago. The times have changed so much, and people don't seem to volunteer as much anymore, especially younger people. And older people are what they call graying out. They've done their thing, and they're sitting back a bit more now, not as involved necessarily. So it's a big issue for a lot of charities and nonprofits going forward in terms of what's going to be your viability kind of thing, right? And not just money, but just volunteers as well. There's still a role for volunteers, don't get me wrong, but you can't do everything with volunteers anymore if you want to do anything. So.
Well, it's wonderful that you do have the Dream House Lottery, and it's successful. And I think it's a thing people expect and look forward to, like the Janeway Telethon. People are ready to contribute. And
I think it's sort of baked into our culture almost now. I've had people tell me, I bought a ticket from the very first draw, and they always say, well, if I don't win, I know I'm supporting a good cause that helps people with hearing loss, and all that kind of stuff. So So that's really nice to know, and that's the trust we've built up, I think, with the public over the years. That it's been a good draw, and we try to run it the right way and follow all the rules and make sure we're doing the right thing and the money spent as effectively and efficiently as possible. So that's when you're in the charitable nonprofit sector. That's what you should be doing. And in fact, Catherine, I want to mention that we are the only charity in Newfoundland and Labrador that's accredited by Imagine Canada, which is the umbrella organization nationally for charities and nonprofits in Canada. They have this program where you earn accreditation based on a whole set of 75 different things about how you run, how you govern, how you're managed, your fundraising, your financials reporting, and your volunteerism programs and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very proud to say that we earned that designation almost 10 years ago now. So you go on a 5-year cycle and you reapply again, but you got to offer evidence annually as well with a short report about different things they ask you about. Are you doing this, that, or the other thing? So I think that speaks to the credibility of our association and how it's run and what we're all about and how we try to do things. So we're very proud of that.
Yes, and the province is proud too, I'm sure, to hear that. That's wonderful.
Oh, they are, but they won't give more money. So we keep trying to get more money out of them, but they haven't ponied up yet. But there it is. It's the ongoing battle for nonprofits, right?
Well, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to share, Leon. I think you've covered a great deal of information. I've learned a lot, and I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
Well, yeah, I also I didn't touch on. We do hearing screening on Wednesdays. We do it's not a formal full diagnostic test that you'd get from a certified dealer. It's just what you call a screening test, but it's enough to tell us you get a pass fail. And if you fail, we'll do it again just to confirm. But then we'll recommend that you see an audiologist for follow up, and further testing, right? Because there could be lots of different reasons why you might fail, at a particular test. And so you can book an appointment for that. We offer a free test every Wednesday, and people really enjoy that. Like I said, there's no pressure to buy anything. It's just a test. You find out. And most people, I should mention, are probably 9 out of 10 people who take the test fail. So most people know if they got a hearing loss, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing, if they're honest with themselves. Some people are in denial. They'll deny it for years and years and years until, what triggers them generally is when they get to the point they can't hear their grandchildren very well. And that what drives a lot of them then to go get some help, so especially men. Men are bad for admitting that, they'll deny it, they'll bluff and say, no, I don't have hearing loss and all that kind of stuff, so but that's one thing I want to let people know about. And also just the fact that, we're always here to help people. We want to see more people. We wish and hope that more people with hearing loss would just, not sit there and do nothing. You have options. The first is to educate yourself, about what's going on with hearing loss and what your options might be. And then we'll help you with all that and help you guide the decision that you feel you need to make, whether it's to buy to get a hearing aid or cochlear implant or not, or just an assistive listening device. So there are options available to you. So we encourage people, don't sit there and do nothing. The best thing you can do is call us, make an appointment, and get some free education and advice and supports. And then, you'll be on to a better hearing life. And to us, that's what it's all about,
Well, Leon, thank you for everything you've shared. I think your journey led you to the right place. You're working where you've needed to be for all these years. And I'm sure you've had an understanding to people who come through your doors because of your own experience.
Years ago, I did do direct client service myself, but did it all before we started adding staff, and I was able to delegate to different people. But now my role is primarily an administrative one, and governance with the board and that kind of stuff. But it's still good work. I still, most of my work is behind the scenes, I guess, if you want to call it. But we do have other staff now that engage with the public, and but it's still very gratifying to me. Just a different kind of work than I did in the beginning. And that's all part of an evolving process of change and growth that, people go through when they're doing something. And so I evolved from all that and moved to, my role has changed over the years. And now it's mostly administrative one, but it's still a very important one. And of course, to support the staff and the board and and make sure that the whole organization is running efficiently and effectively and using resources wisely, and that we're there, the public knows we're there, and we're trying to do our best for them, and we do. And that's, to me, you can't ask for anything more gratifying, I don't think, as a former volunteer, or still volunteer in the community, but as somebody who works with, with people with disabilities, and as an organization that provides service for disabilities, to me, that's what it's all about. And so I'm very gratified to be able to still be healthy at my age and still be doing that. And I still hope to do it for more years to come. So, I'm not out of here yet. So even though I'm a senior.
Well, thank you so much, Leon, for joining us on this podcast of Seniority and doing this via Zoom. Thank goodness for technology.
You're very welcome. I really enjoyed it. And like I say, if you want to do anything else down the road, I'm quite open to that. And I wish you guys and Ray and everybody else there the best of luck with this project. I think it's an important one, and excited to see how it all unfolds as you guys get your work done. So congratulations. And like I said, thanks for asking me. And I really enjoyed it.
Well,
and
thank you.
Have a better hearing day.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. And wish your wife good luck in the classroom for me.
All right.
Okay.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And now on Seniority, Larry Short. So Larry, with the content of a will, what people put in their will with their givings and their gifts and things, should they be concerned about, what the family members think, or neighbors or friends, or what they're leaving? Or is there any way to avoid any difficult part of that?
Yeah, so once you get over the age of 65, there's a type of alternative to a will called an alter ego trust. Whenever we say the word trust, many people kind of cringe again because they think it's only for rich people, but it's not. Trusts arise a lot in wills when even things like a couple who are in their 40s may have 2 children, may be earning some good money, they have insurance on their house, etc., and they suddenly pass away in a car accident, and the value of the house plus their RSPs and the like might be worth, say, $2 million once the house is paid off from the insurance, etc. And they're going to leave $1 million each to their children. One is 8 and the other one is 14. Well, if you haven't specified it in the will, those inheritances actually go into a trust, and that trust will stay in effect until the child becomes age of majority, which is 19. So you're going to be creating a trust anyway. You didn't really know that you were creating a trust in the will because it wasn't something that you were aware that you should ask your lawyer about. But at age 19, one of your children is about to get $1 million in cash. Do you really think that a 19-year-old should have $1 million in cash? And then the other one's going to get it when they turn 19. So you need to have that discussion of trusts anyway. And again, in the book, we break it down, cut the jargon out, and like to explain to you what the trust is. So let's go back to the alter ego trust. The alter ego trust is an alternative way that you can leave money. It's an alternative way to put together essentially your will. The benefit of the alter ego trust is that it is a private document, and the only people that see what is received by one child or another is that child themselves. So they don't get to see what everybody else does. So again, will not be a private document. If you have 4 children and a couple of cousins and a couple of friends and maybe a charity or 2 that you want to leave money to, they can all see what everybody else got, and everybody else can see it. And early on in my career, for example, I had a circumstance where a particular lady called me and she said, "Did you tell anybody else what I had inherited?"
Mhm.
And I said, "No, of course not. We lose our license if we violate our confidentiality." And she had been receiving calls from various mutual fund and insurance people saying, "I understand that you inherited a significant several $1 million. We should talk." And it was because they read the will. So this alter ego trust is one tool. If you're over the age of 65, that is available. There's other choices there. It's not often used in this province or even in Canada. We're really big fans of it because it solves a lot of problems. One of the problems is that sometimes in an extended family or in a family that there's a divorce and then there's a second family, so there's a difference between ages, etc. for the children. There's selective remembering of gifts. So sometimes mom and dad might have helped out somebody by giving them a piece of land to start a house, or they helped out somebody else in their 20s because they ran up a lot of debt on their Visa card or the like. And this is a way to even out the gifts over time. So if they received their gift through a will, one person might have gotten more money than another. They get into a dispute. They call a lawyer. The lawyer says, you know what, let's challenge the will in court. And we go through a whole process. Whereas in the case of the alter ego trust, if you don't get to see what anybody else has, it's really hard to cause or generate a lawsuit.
So, Larry, would you recommend that seniors go to a lawyer with help for their will?
As strongly as I can possibly state this, yes. To create a will without going to a lawyer is kind of like doing, do it at home dentistry. You can get away with a little bit of it, but if you need to dig into this thing and get anything that looks like a complication, again, you really need somebody who is fully aware of the legal implications to properly put this will together. So just to give you a simple example, again, years ago we had a case where it was a handwritten will that says, I want to leave this house to my sister. So in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, the contents of the house are considered to be a different asset than the house. So you can leave the house to someone, but if it's silent about the contents, then you're going to get into questions. So, in that house, are there antiques? Is there art on the wall? Is there, a jewelry that came from great-grandmother from years ago that it was intended for somebody else? Was it promised to someone else in some ways? So to make it absolutely legal, you do need to involve a lawyer. And we've seen a lot of this, particularly lately, ads, on Facebook and other places saying, free will kit and this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So understand where that's coming from. That you're not going to get a free will kit. You're going to get someone who says, I would like to talk to you about your will, and I need your email address, because in the past I could send out spam, and we got brought in the anti-spam laws to prevent people from trying to make contact to see if they can sell you life insurance or a mutual fund or something else along those lines. That's what those plans are about. Now, that being said, there is a lot of information on the internet where you can say, I'd like to see what a sample will looks like or the like, and that's a great place to start, but don't finish there. If you start putting together the will ahead of time, it's a really good idea. And in the book, we have a checklist. We have questions should be answered, and effectively a document that you can then take to your lawyer and say, hi, here's what I filled out in here in the workbook part. Make this legal, but you definitely should be dealing with a lawyer at all times to make sure this is done in the correct manner.
So Larry, where could seniors go to receive help regarding making their will?
The first place that you would go is to your lawyer. If you've had a lawyer who's done some real estate work with you, it doesn't mean that they're an expert in that field, but it's a great place to start. The second one would be to your accountant, if you get somebody who does your tax returns. And if you don't have somebody who does your tax returns, CPA Canada, Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, every now and then they do a public seminar on wills and estates. So it doesn't hurt to call your CPA and say, is there one of those seminars showing up? I'm interested in attending. It's usually held at a local library or school basement, that sort of thing. The third place would be your investment advisor. And have that conversation. If you really have a really good relationship with that investment advisor, it's a great place to go and to start asking them about, how do I begin this? And in the book, again, we have a checklist of here's the questions to be asking to be sure that what we've seen sometimes is what we call bait and switch, which is, hi, come and talk to us about estate planning. By the way, here's the life insurance that you really need. but you don't get the rest of the work done. So you really need to be sure that you're getting the work done that you need to get done. And then last place would be Seniors Resource Center, to be able to talk with them locally, and ask them where should I go. They may have some seminars coming up as well.
Well, Larry, thank you. It's been a wealth of information. I'd like to let our audience know that you've also gifted us 3 copies of yours and Kimberly's book, The Last Act. And we'll let the audience know when they can go about a chance to be lucky winner to receive one of these books. It was generous, and thank you, Larry. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we?
Yes, we should mention that there's Short Financial has a website with a lot of resources on the website itself. So if you go and Google Larry Short, St. John's, you'll find me, and Short Financial is better, and you'll find the whole team, the whole crew. There's a number of resources that are there, and including the podcast that Kimberly did with Chartered Professional Accountants in Canada, that's really directed to widows. In many cases, women are the last person standing, and sometimes as they go through the shock of losing their spouse of many, many years, they don't know what the next step is. And that podcast is there. It's a free podcast. It's available by just going to Short Financial and clicking on podcast there, and you'll see CPA Canada with Kimberly about what's called Going It Alone. So that's available as a resource to you at any time.
Well, Larry, thank you so much for joining us on Seniority today. You've given us a wealth of information, a lot to think about.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And you'll find on there, for example, Kimberly Short she's my spouse and business partner as well. And how the book came about was that CPA Canada, Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, called me and asked me about an estate question. Kimberly had just completed her trust and estate planning designation. I said, you know what? The best person to answer that question is Kimberly. They kept her on the phone for about 45 minutes. Then they did a podcast with her that's called Going It Alone. And we put that podcast on the website. That podcast addresses the concerns that widows have in particular, and how culturally the oldest generation, the baby boomers' parents, tend not to talk to families at all, their family at all, about the will and estate plan, and how do you deal with that sort of thing. And also in the book, we do talk about, once that you do get the will put together, you should talk with your own family about the intentions in there, and that's called the family meeting part. So a lot of resources within the book itself, and again, there's no salesperson will call. It's a service that was done as part of the offering from CPA Canada on financial literacy.
My next book would have actually a lot of interest for seniors, because it's not a crime book. It's not a crime thriller. It's a novel called We Will Meet Again. And it's about these 4 women in the same family who experience generational trauma and how it gets passed down for generation to generation until someone's finally able to turn it into generational strength. But it starts with the death of a Newfoundland sailor in World War II, who was engaged to the great-grandmother. And so she loses her fiance in the war. And then that ripple effect of losing the man she loved went through her family for generations. And as most Newfoundlanders know, is that in World War I, the Great War, and World War II, we lost 2 generations of men, of fathers and brothers and uncles and boyfriends and fiancés and husbands. And when those men were lost, what would happen is back home, you would have the mother with, 6 or 8 children, and not able to provide for them. Because you got to remember, back in the 1940s, women did not have the right to open a bank account without a man. We couldn't get a mortgage without a man signing. We couldn't hold, certain jobs without a man's permission. So it wasn't like we could just go to the bank and get a loan. They were left isolated and just, my gosh, they lost everything. And so what they would do is, a cousin would take a son, and your sister would take the daughter, and so they kind of farmed out the children. To this very day, there are people in Newfoundland finding out that their parents are really their aunts and uncles, because they had a father died in the war. The ripple effects of that have gone through our generations since the war. And normally when you read about books about, the Great War or World War II, it's always from the man's perspective, the soldier, and rightfully so. They deserve every honor. But very rarely do we hear the story of the women who were at home and had to keep the home fires burning, and how what they went through and how it affected their lives to this very day. And that's what We Will Meet Again is about this great grandmother who's about to turn 100 years old, her daughter, and her daughter, and how this generational trauma got passed down because of a death in World War II.
As you're talking about this, I think about over the years and the seniors or my grandparents and things, the stories that you wish you had them back to be able to hear them again, because when you're younger, it's the appreciation is not there. And so I think I'd encourage anybody who has grandparents or still to get those stories told and to take the time to sit down, because those seniors who lived those lives were young at one time, and sometimes the memories and those experiences, the next generations are who they are because of them. And
exactly. And actually, that's exactly what I did with In Search of Adventure, the book I wrote about the RCMP, was because, as a veteran, pretty much every week I'm going to a funeral of a veteran. And when you're in the funeral home, all these people are saying, oh my gosh, remember that time he did that? My God, what a good cop he was. And all these great stories. And I'm leaving the home thinking, why didn't anybody tell me these stories before? I'm just hearing them now. And now we've lost another piece of history. So I decided that I was going to interview 70 veterans. So I went out and I interviewed 70 veterans, and I started with the oldest down to the youngest, and catch up their stories. And I would send these stories back to, a lot of them didn't have computers, the older ones. And I would send these stories back to their children, via email, to say, can you read this to your father and make sure I've got everything right? And the child would, this would be an adult child, would call me back and go, I think you got my father's story mixed up with somebody else. This is not my father's story. And I said, oh, yes, it is. It absolutely is. I said, just read it to your father. So he read it to his father, and he called me back and he said, your father said you got this year wrong, changed the year, but other than that, everything is right. And he said, I have to tell you something. I have no idea who this man was. I never knew any of these stories about my father. Never knew. He was, one of the first people to investigate this type of crime, and made huge difference in policing. And he never went home and spoke about it with his family. And so for these children who are getting the stories of their parents, would call me and go, like, I can't even believe this is my father or this is my mother. And they just love these stories. Yeah. And I made it into the book. And now I'm actually doing it on a national level for the RCMP to capture stories, because it's so important that you write your story down for your generation. And I actually go into some seniors' homes and talk to seniors about writing, to say, look, you may not, everybody has a book in them, yes, but not everybody should publish that book. And not everybody wants to publish the book. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't write the book, because your story is going to mean something for the people after you. If you want to be remembered, if you don't want what your life was about to be forgotten, write it down. It doesn't have to be a bestseller. Write your story down about your life, how you met your spouse, the things that made you happy, things you achieved that you would like your next generation to know. Write it down and give them the story. What a wonderful Christmas gift it would make to write your story and give it to your children so they could pass it down. And now you can do video stories. If you can't write it down, sit there in front of have somebody come in and tape you telling these stories. Make your own little book and for your family. So important to capture that story, because once you're gone, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you, you're inspiring to people who might be or have been at the retirement age, and you inspire them to keep going and to continue on with maybe adventures or dreams that you had. And I guess that would be some recommendation you would give to any seniors, to keep going and keep moving and keep doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can't tell you how many times I hear of somebody retiring and then a year or two later they're dead. And I'm thinking, like, my gosh, what was going on? So you're on borrowed time right now. You got, at the most, think about how many years do you have left. And I always say to my husband, every time, one of the things we wanted to do, because he's retired too, is we wanted to travel a lot. So that's what we do. We make sure we go on a cruise every year, and we go have a vacation with our children every year, and we're able to do that, thank God. But lifetime of working hard, that's what we do. And so it's so important to go live your life. And I every time my husband looks at me and goes, I don't know, can we afford that? Should we do it? And I'd say, listen, at the most, we have 25 Christmases left. So, all right, this is the 25th. Next year's the 24th. Do you want to be Christmas Day wishing you were with the kids, or do you want to be Christmas Day with the kids? This is your only decision. It's your 25th Christmas. We're marking this one down. How are we doing it? And that changes everything. You start looking at, I only got 25 Christmases left or 10 Christmases left, then you start living life a little different. But, what I say to seniors is, get off the couch, get out and move, just because this whole idea of seniors, we're the only group that hasn't been offended by their name yet. Anybody else, my gosh, you can't use this word, can't use that word. But seniors is like, we're supposed to be all issued our cane at 60 and sit in our diapers and watch TV. And we are not that generation. Listen, we're the Jane Fonda generation. We could whoop your behind real quick, So for seniors, I mean, every week I go up to the center here up the road, the Paul Reynolds Center, and I do seniors classes. And they have like core balance classes twice a week, and they have body bar classes twice a week. The class is full of seniors, and I tell you, there's one lady in my class that's 90 years old, does core balance every week, twice a week, and I tell you, I'd put her up against any 25-year-old, and I bet you she'd take them down, because we are in great shape. So for seniors, I say, go join be social. Find something to do, whether it's, the Paul Reynolds Center, Muse Center. These are all very cheap places to go to, or classes like $5 or something. So, go to something. And I do line dancing. We do couples dancing as a couple, because really, what else are, a couple, we're not going to go on George Street. So where else do we go where you get to hold each other for 3 hours and work together on something? So this is, so good for your marriage. You got to work on your marriage now as a senior too. You just can't take anything for granted. So, get off the couch, join a social group, join an exercise class, join a dance class, join anything, and start looking at your creative side. So many people I work with now, they paint, they're doing painting and writing and joining singing groups. Like, get your creative side on, start moving, and keep your brain going. And I read a book every week still, and I sit down after supper and I read a book, and it's the best exercise for your mind. You got to keep your mind active, keep your body active, keep your social circle active.
Well, Helen, it's been wonderful talking with you, and thank you so much for taking part in our Seniority Zoom call. And I'm delighted to have met you.
So I think my Salem got his back to you there.
I know. I don't know what his message, but I think it's just a cat thing, isn't it? She's talking to her and not me. So
yeah, exactly.
And now on Seniority, the conclusion of our conversation with Elizabeth Siegel of Seniors NL. Another area, Elizabeth, that I think seniors, there's a critical issue is with housing. And wondering, what does Seniors NL offer to seniors in that area?
Yeah, and I mean, actually, housing and daily living are probably our top two kinds of calls that we get. I'm sure most people have seen the housing crisis in the news, and it's absolutely real and absolutely true. We do have housing lists of all the apartment buildings and subsidized housing in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we do send them out. But we also can advise people. It's a really difficult situation right now. So for instance, we would tell people, if you have the option, don't give your notice until you find a new place, because you really might find yourself homeless and having to put your stuff in storage, to prepare, to ask everyone you know if there's a place out there, to take a look at what the rents are now, because they've really increased and people may not be aware for that. And if you do need subsidized housing, to apply as soon as possible, because there is quite a waiting list for it.
So if people needed advice, if they're looking for a place right now, what would you say is the first step?
Well, right now, finding a house seems to be all on social media, which is a barrier right there because a lot of seniors don't use social media. Although we can't help with actual house hunting, we can direct people to some of the places they can go. There are some organizations and housing centers where you can go and use their computer. But again, if you're comfortable with it, there are some organizations that provide housing support workers. But again, I will warn people, there's probably a 2 to 3 month waiting list at the very least. So even if you're considering in the future of looking, I would say start now, get applications and get your names on waiting lists.
And you are hearing from a number of seniors being affected by?
We're hearing from people who are being forced to go into shelter who have never been homeless in their life. A lot of seniors are getting 3-month no-fault evictions because their landlords want them to leave, and then they can fix up the place and then they can increase the rent. So it really is quite scary out there. So again, it's really about planning and not making a move quickly. Even if someone's thinking of selling a house, again, we would say, please make sure you have a place to move into before the sale of your house goes through.
What about people who want to stay in their own home? Is there anything provided to help them with that situation?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a call we get very, very often. Of course, most people want to stay in their own home. So that might be a matter of hooking them up with home support. Or if it's a question about the home itself, there's a couple of really good programs that people might not be aware of. Newfoundland and Labrador Housing has a provincial home repair program. And that provides money for low-income seniors to do repairs to their home, like a new roof or oil tank or something like that. There's also another one called the Home Modification Program. So that provides money to do things like put in a ramp or change the bathroom so you have a roll-in shower. So that right there can make all the difference in the world.
What about options for low-income seniors needing a place to live right now? Like what would you say?
Really, subsidized housing is the answer. Again, there are waiting lists, but there is actually something called the Canada Housing Benefit, which allows someone to apply for a portable subsidy. So that means that they don't necessarily have to go into a Newfoundland and Labrador housing unit, but they can take that subsidy with them for a private landlord. Again, another one with a long waiting list, but worth putting your name on the list and applying for. And I mean, that can make a big difference in your financial situation as well.
A lot of wonderful information here, Elizabeth. Is there anything else that you can think you'd like to add to this information you've given?
I guess just that, you don't know what you don't know until you know. So if you have a need, even if you don't know what possibly could solve it, I would encourage people to call us, and you never know, we might have an answer or a service we can connect you with.
Before we clue up, can you tell us all the ways again that we can contact Seniors NL?
Yeah, so our toll-free number is 1-800-563-5599. For For people in the St. John's and surrounding area, they can drop in and visit us, but we would suggest giving us a call just to, make an appointment if possible. We also have a website, which is seniorsnl.ca, and we have a lot of information on that. And there's also a contact form that you can use to reach us, or by email. It's info@seniorsnl.ca, and we welcome all inquiries.
Where are you located? Where is the office?
We're actually in the St. Luke's Home Complex, so that's 24 Road Deluxe. We're in Bab Manor, which is an apartment building there.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This has been wonderful. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add that you think might be important, but you've given a wealth of information. Makes me keep thinking about the future too.
Yeah, just for people to jot our number down, you might not need us now, but you might in the future. We have pre-tax clinics at tax time for low-income seniors. If you need help filling out a form, or you don't have the internet and you need us to print out a form and mail it to you, we're happy to do that. So yeah, don't hesitate to call us.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us on Seniority today. It's been a wonderful experience, and you've given us a lot of wonderful information. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Seniority, a presentation of the Jimmy Pratt Memorial Outreach Center. You can reach us at our website, jimmyprattcenter.ca. Email contact@jimmyprattcenter.ca, or call 709-726-8781. Seniority Technical Operations are by Peter Elliott, and Seniority is produced by Ray Penton. Thank you for joining us.